Hey guys, welcome back to the next part of the series. Today we're going to continue with our Aku build right here. If you remember on the last class or the last section that we did, we finished the feathers and we did the whole texturing. Now, let me go here. I thought we had this already, sorry. So, as I was saying, in the last class or in the last part of the series, we went over the textures and we did the alphas for the feathers. Now, I did notice this little thing right here, that little corner. And the reason why that is happening is because the UV maps, that's one of the rules that we usually don't break. You should never like bring the UV map onto the other like square on the other border, because what usually happens is the software will repeat the texture on each quadrant, and therefore this one right here is actually like slightly touching this one right here, and that's why we're getting a little bit of a pixel there. So I'm just gonna grab my UV here and just bring it back, just a little bit like that, and that should be good. So our UVs are good. Now, if we want to, we could add a little bit of a bend to this feathers, because I do think they look a little bit too clean. So there's a nice little tool. Let me see if it works here for this asset. There's a nice little tool here inside the mesh panel called Remesh. And the Remesh tool is very, very cool because what it does is it will try to, as the name implies, remesh your object, give it a little bit more geometry. So we can play around with the collapse threshold and the max edge length, as you can see, and we're gonna get a couple more triangles here and there. I think that should be good enough. And you can see that the texture pretty much stays the same. So I'm just gonna hit this one, hit apply. Let's bring the collapse down, and I just want to have a couple of more triangles, and you're gonna see why in just a second. Now this is not optimal. This is not like super game ready or anything. But I just want to make sure that we get some nice effect here. So that one looks good, and this one, there we go. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab this first one, and I'm gonna go into the deform options, and I'm gonna hit nonlinear bend, and you're gonna see that we get this line. If I increase the curvature of this line and I rotate the whole line gizmo, I can add curvature to the feather. See there? So it's going to try to copy the curvature that we have here on the little line. If we increase this, of course, we're going to bend this a little bit more. So I want to bend it probably something like this. And now here we have the low bound and the high bound is how much effect you have on each part of the object. So I'm just going to keep it like at 0 on the low bound, and let's push this feather back. After we're done, we're of course going to go into the history. Now for this one, we're going to do the same. So just create a deform, non-linear bend. We're going to bend this, rotate the gizmo around, get rid of the low bound. And this one I'm actually going to rotate to the other side, like to the front, to get a little bit of a different feel. Not as much, probably something like this. There we go. This one we're gonna do, also delete history. We don't need it anymore. Once you delete the history, the deformer gets erased, and we're good to go. Deform, non-linear bend again, and we're just gonna push the curvature here. Again, no low bound. Rotate the gizmo so that it kind of goes in the direction that we want it to go. So something like this, I think looks good. Delete history, and finally this one, deform, nonlinear bend. Remember, all of this, we're doing it on the modeling tab. So if you don't find the tool, you might not be on the modeling tab itself. So let's do this. I want to, push this one to the front. There we go. Let's get rid of the low bound. And we're just going to delete history. So there we go. Now, they're still very flat, as you can see here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select them again, go into the form, non-linear, bend again. And now what I'm going to do is I am going to add curvature, but I'm going to try to make sure that this kind of goes on the same direction like that the thing is going. So you can see it here, and that's going to give it a little bit of a concave look. So it's not going to be completely flat. Just to, add a little bit of more of a visual interest. Another thing we could do is we can go into vertex, grab all of this vertex here, press your letter B on your keyboard, and this is going to bring up soft selection. And then if you leave the letter pressed and click middle mouse button, you can drag the gradient here, and we can manually like adjust a little bit of the curvature. By adjusting the gradient, we're gonna be able to give it a little bit more volume to the whole thing. So let me show you like here. We're just gonna like make this slightly smaller, just push it out just slightly, and that's gonna break up the silhouette a little bit. It's just two ways in which you can do it. You could grab like the outer border here on the vertices. Make it a little bit bigger and then just like move it slightly. And there we go. We're gonna get a very nice like effect. It is a little bit heavy, as you can see here with the triangles. This is again not game optimized, but it's gonna work fine. I mean, Unreal is not gonna bother or anything. By the way, I already have the new Unreal 5 installed here. It's the beta 2, I believe. And I'm not sure if in this video or in the next one, we're gonna be bringing the mask in, and we're gonna try and see if we can make it hover. So I'm gonna bring the, it seems like I erased my image plane, so I'm gonna go back into front view. Let's bring the image plane back. There we go. Let's position it so that we have as close to the proper scale as we had before. Doesn't have to be perfect, because now what I'm going to be focusing on is the little leaves right here. So I want to model these little leaves here in Maya, do a quick UV, and they're going to have their own little textures. It's going to be a super simple texture, because as you can see, these ones are a little bit different. They're shaded a little bit different. Now I do want to keep the hand painted shaded effect, but we do need to model them. So it's super easy. First of all, I'm going to grab all of these guys right here, like the mask and everything. I'm going to right click this layer and add the selected objects. Now we can turn off the visibility and they're gonna be hidden. Now I need to go check something real quick. This is gonna be just a jump for you. Sorry, the delivery guy was outside, so just had to pick something up. So, the little leaves, we're gonna be modeling very, very fast. And the way we're gonna be modeling this, guys, is, as you can see, they're mainly, what we would call them, they're mainly there as a very soft round shape. So even though we could take these guys into ZBrush and do all of the little like wrinkles and stuff, I think we can get away with doing it here inside of Maya. And I want to show you a technique that's going to give us a very nice effect. So first we need to do the general silhouette. So I'm going to go here into Mesh Tools, and I'm going to use the Create Polygon. I'm going to create the one polygon right there. I'm going to make sure, let's bring this guy back. Make sure that the polygon is facing me. So I'm going to say Mesh Display Reverse to make sure that the normal is facing me. Now with this polygon ready, I can just start drawing with my quad draw. And I'm going to draw, let's turn off self-selection, the little loop here. Now I am not going to, actually I was going to do a different kind of loop there, but I think we can get away with this. So I'm just going to do a nice little loop that goes around the whole leaf. Maybe add one more there just to keep it round. Now we need to fill in the middle section. So I'm going to go here, 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 and here. This is pretty much a little bit of the retopology thing that you guys have been asking for. So we go here. I'm going to add one more square just to keep it as close, as symmetrical as possible. Let's get rid of that one. Actually, we can just combine it there and there. That's a square. That's a square. We can press Shift to smooth everything out. And now our leaf is ready. Now, of course, this is just flat, so we need to give it volume. I'm going to Control E to extrude the whole thing. We're going to get this. And I am going to, I mean, if we do number 3, we kind of get what we're going for. So to keep it simple, and again, this is not game optimized, but I'm just going to hit here. I'm going to say Mesh Smooth. And this is going to create like the nice little shape for my leaf. Now you can see that they're creating a little bit of like a concave effect as well. So this is where the form comes into play. I am gonna rotate this so that it's as like centered as possible first. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna say the form, non-linear, bend, and we're just gonna increase the curvature here. Let's rotate the gizmo so that it's going back in space like this. There we go. Grab the whole thing, do the history, do another one, the form, non-linear bend. We're going to do another curvature, but now this one's going to go across like this so that we create this very nice concave shape. And I'm just going to hit the history again. And there we go. We have the nice little leaf shape. Now, since we do have some nice topology here, we can actually utilize this topology to create a little bit of a shadow. So I'm going to like push this in, and that's going to create kind of like the middle section there for the element. Now, to keep it soft, I'm going to grab this guy and this guy just on the outside, just push them slightly in, creating that sort of like middle line section that we get. It's just for the shading effect, but it's gonna be looking good. Now I'm gonna grab this guy, and we need to do a quick UV. So I'm just gonna say UV. Let's do UV planar mapping, and I'm gonna go into UV 3D cut. We're gonna cut right there on the middle line. We go UV editor. going to say modify unfold. And then it's just a matter of like making them slightly smaller and getting them inside the square. I kind of want both of them to be on the same direction. We can probably increase the, let's turn this off. We can probably increase the size just a tad bit to maximize the resolution space as much as possible. Here, I mean, we can flip it. It's not going to be the end of the world. And there we go. So this is our UV. So let's very quickly texture this guy. Well, not very quickly, but let's just bring this guy into Substance so we can texture. So File, Export Selection. And here on our assets, on the Aku folder, let's call this Aku leaf. Let's go into Substance. The newest version of Substance. And yeah, so what we're going to be doing, and I can actually do it like right now, even though we haven't textured this thing, is we're eventually just going to duplicate this guy a couple of times and position it where it's supposed to be. So for instance, here I can see that there's 3, 4, 5, and 6. And now if we go into perspective, we can see which one is on top. So this one is the one that's further forward. It's as forward as much as it can be. This one, let me turn off this thing, the motion blur. I'm not sure what it was on. This one was below it as well, so right about there. And then this one is the one that's at the very back. Same for this one. It's on the last layer, if you wish. And the cool thing is, since we're duplicating all of this, guys, they're all sharing the same UV. So once we texture one, all of them are going to have the exact same texture. Now, just make sure that from the back it looks good. One thing we could do, even though we don't see it, but we can add like another one here on the back, just to cover this area right here, so that we don't see like where all of the things are connecting. And there we go. Now, of course, the textures, we do have them for the rest of the mask, but we're missing them for the leaves. So let's jump onto Adobe Substance here, and we're going to go File, New. This is probably going to be a 512. I think 512 is fine. And we're going to select the Aku leaf, DirectX, because we're going to go into Unreal and hit OK. And we got this. Now, even though we don't have a bake, you should still do the bake mesh maps, just because there's a couple of very simple maps like the world map and the curvature map that are going to be helpful for us. And remember the toon stylized thing that we had? We can actually use it. So let me reduct this. There we go. So the smart material that we did before, we can use it as a base so that we don't have to spend as much time. This is one of the great things about smart materials. If you do them properly, you're going to get some very cool effects. So here, remember the base color, or actually this base layer, I'm just going to delete it. This base color, I am going to turn roughness on, and I'm going to bring it all the way to the top so that we can see this flat shaded. And we're going to start with like a green tone. Let me bring this guy to the other screen. Oop. There we go. So grab this guy, and we're going to sample that like green color. I think that one's fine. Then this is going to be the light tone. It's going to be slightly lighter. And then the dark tone, we're going to keep it like this. Now, for this one, though, I am going to be doing a little bit more of traditional hand-painted technique. So let's start with the light color. So I'm going to bring this to a black mask, or create this and make it a black mask. And what I want to do is, with a soft brush, with a very nice soft brush, like this one right here, I'm going to paint the light on top of the leaf. See that? So I'm going to paint all of this area with light. And then with my dark mask, or with black, I can just erase that. I'm going to bring this all the way to the top because I really want this thing to look nice. And then I'm going to turn this guy as well. I'm going to black mask it, and same deal. I'm just going to paint a little bit of shadow here on the top. Because I know most of the leaves on the character are going to be like touching other parts of the character, and that means that we're going to have this sort of effect. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to, of course, lower this quite a bit. And one thing we can do is we can add a filter. So if I press right click, I can go into filter, and we can do something like a blur. And by increasing the amount of blur, we're going to soften that like dark transition right there. I'm gonna go back here and let's get rid of some of it. There we go. And we're gonna get this very, very nice effect. Now we do have the little like brown thing that goes through the leaf. So I'm gonna create another layer, just a color. We're gonna select the brown color. Let me see if I can sample it. There we go. Black mask. And now I'm gonna do a little bit of a harder brush. And just like do this right here. Now I know it looks very, very bad right now, but don't worry. We're gonna fix it. Let's just create a little bit of an effect here. Just a little bit of an indication going lower. And we're of course gonna change this to some sort of color. Can be overlay, could be multiply, it could even be just a normal color and just like blend it a little bit, or change the tone to like a darker, like more intense one. And we can also add a filter, but I'm not gonna add the normal blur. I'm gonna add this blur slope, which is gonna break up the little thing. This actually I learned from a student recently. I gave them an assignment where they had to teach me something new, and he taught me about this blur slope, which is very, very cool. As you can see, it adds a little bit of breaks to the whole thing, and it gives this very nice effect. And yeah, there we go. So we have this very, very nice leaf right here. I do want to add a little bit more highlights, so I'm gonna add another fill layer. Let's go with like a yellow. Of course, nothing but color. Black mask. And I'm gonna go with a soft brush. I'm gonna add the highlights like here and here on this areas. I'm gonna do the exact same thing. I'm gonna add a filter, and we're gonna use this blur slope. And now we're gonna change this to a linear dodge, which multiplies the color. And by deleting or bringing this down, we're gonna get a nicer effect. We can of course go with like a brush like this dirt spots. Go into the mask. And break up the shine a little bit. So we're gonna have a little bit of a light indication. I think I'm gonna have this underneath the branch. But you can see how we get this very, very nice like light texture, giving it this interesting like hand painted effect. Cool, right? I think we can go here. Let's go with the dark tone. Let's add this slope as well. I think it's gonna look good. So let's add a filter, and let's do the blur slope. Yeah, it breaks the surface a little bit more. One last thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go into my materials, and I'm just gonna grab, I really like this concrete bear, and the only reason I like this material is because it has a lot of noise on the colors. See, like a lot of variation. So I'm gonna turn everything off, and I'm just gonna change this to like an overlay. And by bringing this down, we're just adding a little bit more visual interest to the whole thing, so that it's not completely flat everywhere, right? Like there's always going to be a little bit of like dirt and stuff. Very important that we don't add any of this like light elements up here. And for the dark tone, I think I'm going to bring it back a little bit. There we go, to have a little bit of a stronger shadow. I do see a little bit of this shadow on the tips of the leaf as well. So I'm just going to add a little bit of shadow here. There we go. So now the leaf really, really pops, which is what we're going for. I'm just gonna say file, and we're gonna save this, of course. We're gonna keep it in case we ever want to do any changes. So let's call this Aku leaf. And we're gonna export the textures. We're gonna export them to our project files. Where is it? Assets, Aku, and right here we're gonna export. We're gonna export this in Unreal Engine 4, even though we're using Unreal Engine 5. It's the same sort of workflow, and we definitely want this to be Targas, and we're gonna say export. So there we go. 5x12 by 5x12 Targas are ready to go. And the best way in which we can try them before we go into Unreal, of course, is with this guy right here. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna grab all of this guys, assign a new material. Let's do a Lambert. And on the color of the Lambert, I'm gonna add the file, and on that file, we're of course gonna add the leaf material. So Aku leaf, default material base color, open, and look at that beautiful guy. Very cool, right? We don't have that like shine right there, which is fine because we're going for this like very flat look for the character. but it's looking very, very good. Now let's talk about how to prepare this model for an engine, because we're gonna be doing the final like presentation inside of Unreal. We're doing good on time. I think we're gonna be able to set everything up on Unreal, and then on the next one we're gonna do a quick little like hover technique. So let's go. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna combine everything here. Just grab all of the objects and combine them. So mesh, combine, so that they're a single mesh. And something very interesting is gonna happen here. First, of course, we're gonna lose the name, so let's call this Aku. I'm gonna add a prefix here called SM, which is static mesh. Or we can just call it Aku, and then at the end underscore geo. We'll do the static mesh inside of Unreal. There we go, so Aku. Now, when we combine the objects, Maya automatically assign several materials to the objects so that we have exactly what we're going for. So for instance, Lambert 10, as you can see here, it's the leaves. And it's very important that we name this properly. So I'm going to call this M leaf. And then this one is the feathers. So I believe this is feathers. Let's check. That's feathers A. So this one is going to be M feathers A. This one's going to be M feathers B. And finally, this one's going to be M Aku. So again, this is not the best way to do it for a game. In a game, you usually want everything in a map or in as few materials as possible. But for this particular example, I think we're going to be just fine. Now I'm going to grab this guy. I'm going to go File, Export Selection, and very important, we're now going to export in FBX. And the reason we want to export in FBX is to make sure that once it gets into Unreal, it keeps that material information, and it also keeps the proper rotation and everything, like exactly like what we have here in Maya. So I'm just going to call this Aku. I'm just going to leave it like that. And the reason is when we import into Unreal, we are going to get the exact same name. So I'm going to create a new folder here inside the content browser, the main area. So let's add a folder. And we're going to call this assets. In case let me know if you guys are interested in learning a little bit about Unreal. I don't have the most experience in it. I know the basics and I know a little bit of visual programming. I'm not a programmer, I'm more of an artist, but I do know my way around it. So if you want to see a couple of little things here and there, let me know and I'll be happy to record some stuff for you guys. So I'm gonna go right here, I'm gonna say import, and we're gonna go on, of course, into our project, assets, Aku, and we have the Aku. So we're just hit open. When we get this, there's a couple of things we need to make sure. We need to make sure that on the material imports, we have this create new materials, so that it creates one new material for each of the material slots that we have. And it should be, convert scene should be on us as well, to make sure that when we import the FBX, it's going to look exactly the same as what we see it in Maya. Because one of the main things about Maya and Unreal is that Maya is actually XYZ, where C is front and back, and Y is up and down. And inside of Unreal, C is up and down, and Y is front and back. So the coordinate system is a little bit different, but if you have this convert scene, it's going to work exactly the same. So I'm just going to hit import, and you're going to see right here how we get the static mesh, which is the character itself, this one right here, and we're going to get all of the elements. So if we go double click here, you should see that we have the element right here, and right now it is actually building up the materials. Like, it knew that the color textures were connected to the character, and you can see that we're seeing like everything running very nicely here. However, it's not actually doing what I wanted to do. You can see that the alpha channel is not working the way I want it, and we don't see it on the other side. So we need to go into the materials and check how things are being connected. So let's start. Let's bring Aku here into the world. Scale wise, it seems okay. Let me just navigate. It's taking a little bit of time to compile the shaders, so let's just give it a couple of seconds. There we go. So let's bring Aku. Yeah, it's fairly proportional to our character. It's roughly the size of his head. I could probably make it slightly bigger. So I'm just gonna grab it here and make it slightly bigger, like about 50% bigger. And there we go. Let's rotate it so it's facing us. Let's position it here. I'm gonna hit play real quick. So there we go. There's Aku Aku in Unreal Engine, nicely working. Now, the only thing is, of course, the materials are not working the way we expect them to work. The eyes are not shining. The feathers look wrong. So let's go into the actual like setup of the material. Let's go with the character first. And in the character, we actually have a couple of things. So we have here our main texture that, as you can see, it's connected to the base color. However, we don't have anything connected to roughness. We could bring the roughness map into Unreal and just plug it in there, but that's extra memory that we don't want right now, because at the end of the day, the roughness map was just set to 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press the number 1, click anywhere on the screen, and we're going to get a float value. I'm just going to connect this float value to roughness. I'm going to change the value to 1. What that's doing, it's pretty much telling you, hey, you know, your roughness channel is 1. It's completely rough, completely matte, completely diffuse. And we're going to get this here. Now, you can see that still has a little bit of a shine or something. That's because of it could be the metallic or it could be the specular. So I'm going to add 1 more, and the 0 is going to go into the specular. So it's not going to reflect any light whatsoever. And it should be, as you can see here, completely flat. Exactly what we had on the, on Substance Painter. So we save the material very quickly here. And if we check our character now, it's going to be like an unlit surface. We could also change the material to unlit, but I do want to keep it lit because I do want shadows and light to affect it. I just don't want it to affect the material. So you can see the shadows from the world are there, but the material is very, very flat. Like we're not seeing any sort of reflection or anything. We're just seeing the shadows of the world, which is very nice. We're going to do the same thing here for the leaf. So press number 1 to create a float. This float at 0, it's going to be specular. And then press 1 and click another one to create another float. This is going to be roughness, and roughness is going to be set to 1. Perfect. So we're going to hit save. It's the only bad thing. That's one of the things I don't like about Unreal. It is a little bit slow because everything tries to like render and compile and do all the work at real time. So sometimes, yeah, doing that sort of stuff takes a while. So now let's go here. If we check this character right here, you're going to see that it is plugging the RGB material into the opacity. And we don't want that. We want the alpha. We had an alpha saved from our character. So we want the alpha to be there on the opacity map. So now the alpha should dictate how these things look. Let me see. There we go. So you can see now it's properly cutting the object. But there's a couple of things we want to change. In the material options, like down here, we're going to change the blend mode. The translucent is fine, but we're going to say two-sided. And the two-sided option is very important because, as the name implies, we want to be able to see the feathers from both sides like this. So we just hit save. And let's take a look at the difference. Right now, only this material has what it needs, or it's properly connected the way it should be. And if we take a look, yeah, you can see that the purple and orange one are looking good. And the other ones are looking still transparent. So let's just double click here. Remove this guy, which is the opacity. And from our main color map, we're just going to drag and drop the opacity color into the opacity tab. And change the material options here to two-sided. That's all. For this simple character, that's pretty much all. So we just hit save. And while that's doing that, there's one more map that we're missing. If you remember, when we were painting the main body of the mask, we did an emissive map, which did not get imported. And the reason it did not get imported is because we didn't have it assigned in Maya. We didn't test it. We knew it was working because we saw it in Substance, but we didn't test it in Maya. So therefore, when we did the import, it didn't know it was there. So I'm just going to go here, and if we go to Aku Aku UV Ready Emissive, I'm just going to drag and drop this material right here, which is going to be a color map. You can see it's black and glowing where we need it. I'm going to double click the Aku Aku object, drag and drop the texture here, and it's just a matter of plugging the RGB, which again is the combination of the 3 channels, into the emissive color. Oh, there we go. We save the object. Let's wait for this to compile because it needs to think how all of this is going to be working in-game. And there we go. So now if we take a look at this handsome guy. And you can see, based on the reflections on the character, it might be a little bit difficult to see, but the light is actually affecting the environment. So there we go. Now, one of the issues that we have with this mask right now is the collision box. Because as you can see, the collision box is it's really, really big, so I can't get any closer. And I do want to get a little bit closer. So one of the cool things about static meshes is that we can actually do a little bit of edit here inside of in Unreal. And right now, if we take a look here at collision and we, where is it? Show simple collision, you can see that this is the actual collision, which is, it's just a very basic box, or polygon box that Unreal created, but I don't think we really need it. I actually don't want the feathers to collide, for instance. I think they could be flowing nicely on the air. So I'm gonna go here into collision. I'm gonna say remove collision, and then I'm gonna say collision, and I'm gonna add a box simplified collision. And this box is like any other object in Maya. We can scale it and modify it so that it fits this character in the best possible way. Now, by default, the scale, move, and rotation tools inside of Unreal have a snap here. So I'm gonna get rid of the snap on everything so that we can more freely move this thing. So let's bring this down. I'm gonna grab a little bit of the roots of the feathers. That's there. A little bit wider, probably a little bit taller. I think something like that is fine. So let's save this. And now if we hit play, we're gonna be able to, it's not that skill. Well, you know why? One of the reasons why we're having a little bit of a hard time is because the character also has a collision. It has a capsule collision. So right now what's happening is both collisions are touching, and that's why we can't get any closer. But I think now the collision looks a little bit nicer. Now, there's one thing I want to try. I want to try and see if I can make the feathers move. Now, I'm going to be honest, I don't remember how to do that, but I know that there is some vertex animation, and it should be fairly easy. I think it was just a node. Let me take a look. What was it? Vertex movement. Let me just quickly look for it. If not, we'll leave it for the next time. I can't seem to find like the quick answer. But there is a node that we can add here inside of the feather materials that's gonna give us this like flowy effect because it's gonna be like displacing the vertices a little bit. But we'll leave it on for the next time. Okay. So I want to make sure that most of our series are always like singly contained, so that if you're looking at a topic, you know what the topic is about. So this one was about setup, a little bit of setup. We finished the materials, we finished the little leaves, we saw a little bit of like painting, and now we're ready to do the final part, which is going to be a little bit of extra coding here inside of Unreal to make sure that this guy looks and lives and breathes inside of the software. So remember, guys, leave us a like, share, comment, let us know what you think. We're gonna have one final video for this series tomorrow, so make sure to check it out once it's out. And show us. I'm not sure how we can share. I'm trying to find a way in which we could share. If you guys have any suggestion, it would be very cool if you could share, if you're doing the tutorial, how it looks for you, like how was your final result. It's always good to see how people are doing like amazing stuff. So that's it for me today, guys, and I'll see you back tomorrow. Bye-bye.